Hey, kids. Hi, everybody. This is the part where you say, "Hi, Miss Irwin." I'll give it a second. Okay, moving on. So, today we're going to do Acts 3 and 4 of your Hamlet video summary class notes. So, we already did Acts 1 and 2. We're going to skip past these. Murder, murder, murder. Stabbing, stabbing, stabbing. So when we last left off, Hamlet had asked the players that his friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, brought whether they could do a play called The Murder of Gonzago. And they were like, sure. Hamlet said, well, I want you to add this other stuff in here, and we're going to call it The Mousetrap. The play is the thing to catch the conscience of the king. So the plot of The Murder of Gonzago is actually weirdly similar to what the ghost claims happened. So if Claudius seems upset by it, then it's pretty much guaranteed that he in fact murdered his brother / Hamlet's father, and he is guilty and therefore needs to die. All right, so Act 3, Scene 1. Our setting is yet another room in Elsinore Castle, featuring King Claudius, KC, Polonius, Polo, Queen Gertrude, QG, Rosencrantz, or Rose, for the purposes of our notes, and Guildenstern, or Guild, as he will be abbreviated going out. Okay, so Gertrude and Claudius were plotting together with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, hoping to help Hamlet, get him back to normal. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern can't figure out Hamlet's issues, but he does seem excited about the play, and that seems like a good thing, they think. Claudius and Polonius plan to bait Hamlet using Ophelia as the bait, because Polonius is like, I guarantee it, he's acting crazy because he's in love with my daughter, and she's told him to go away. And then Hamlet monologues the famous to be or not to be scene. So, in case you haven't figured this out, what he's talking about is whether or not it would be right for him to commit suicide in this moment. He feels so awful that he literally wants to die, but on the other hand, he made some promises, especially to the ghost of his dead dad, and as it's been made very clear, the ghost can't do anything, which means that if Hamlet's a ghost, he probably can't do anything about it either. And then as he's doing this monologue, he gets distracted by the lovely Ophelia. Except this encounter doesn't go the way that Ophelia or her father thought that it would. He rants that all women turn all men into monsters. Now, it does show that he still cares some about her, even though he's mad at his mother and basically thinks that because she's a woman, all this happened. Excuse me. He tells Ophelia, look, the best thing for you is right now to go join a nunnery. So basically what that means is go to a convent and be a nun. That is the best possible outcome for you, because otherwise things are going to go to crap. And he's like, if I was in charge, I would outlaw marriage entirely. And then he makes a vague threat about Claudius and Gertrude. He's like, I wouldn't do anything to the people who are already married, although one of them might not survive. So Polonius and Claudius were listening in from the shadows. And Claudius is really sure that Hamlet is plotting against him after hearing all the weird stuff that he said to Ophelia. And Claudius warns, madness in great ones cannot go unwatched. That's another famous quote. And he's referring to Hamlet. So he's indicating that Hamlet is considered a great one. So he's important. He has influence. And if he really has gone crazy and gone around the bend, then he's super dangerous, especially to Claudius. And then we kick around to Act 3, Scene 2. So, setting the hall in Elsinore Castle. This one obviously is a lot shorter. We have King Claudius, Casey, Queen Gertrude, Hughie, and Horatio, Ho. And obviously Ham for Hamlet. So the actors put on the play with Hamlet's additions that he requested with specific details. Everyone is watching this play. The royals, Hamlet's friends, Polonius, Ophelia, and so on and so forth. Everyone who's in the castle is watching this play. And everyone who's in the castle gets to see how Claudius reacts to it. The actors are probably super confused because, they came here as a job and now everybody's all upset because they did something that was a request from one of the people they're putting the play on for. So they do The Murder of Gonzago. And the plot of The Murder of Gonzago is about a king who poisons the first king and then marries the queen. Gee, does this sound familiar at all? So Lucianus, who is the character in The Murder of Gonzago, had snuck into a field while King number one was asleep. Lucianus poured poison into King number one's ear. King number one dies. Lucianus goes through all the motions of, oh, let me help the poor grieving widow, there. And then he's like, so, you feel lonely? This country really needs a king. And the queen's like, oh, well, you've been so nice to me, and I really like you, so okay, I'll marry you. So they asked Hamlet, since he was the one that requested it, what the name of this play is, and instead of replying Murder of Gonzago, which is its actual name before his additions, he said The Mousetrap. And what he means by this is that the play itself is actually a trap for Claudius. So halfway through the play, Claudius yells, gets up, and storms away. And a good chunk of the audience goes with him because, if the king's upset and doesn't want to watch it, then probably we shouldn't stick around. Hamlet and Horatio both saw this reaction as proof of guilt. This means that the ghost is right. So Hamlet must now kill Claudius for revenge. Dun dun dun! Act 3, Scene 3. Setting. Room in Elsinore Castle. Obviously not the hall because everyone just left there. Claudius, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern, and Polonius are all hanging out together while Claudius freaks out. He's like, okay, look, you two, meaning Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, are going to take Hamlet and you're going to go to England like tonight. The soonest the ship is willing to leave, you're going to be on it. Get. They're like, okay, you're the king. We should probably do what you're asking because otherwise things could go bad for us. So Polonius comes and he promises to spy on Hamlet and Gertrude while they talk alone. And I know that it keeps saying that they're in her closet while that's going on, but you have to keep in mind that their definition of a closet is not like our definition of a closet, especially for a royal. They're talking about a room inside a giant room. So Claudius freaks out. Oh, sorry, I already covered that. My bad. So Polonius comes and he promises, look, sire, I will go spy on Hamlet and the queen while they talk and they think that they're alone. Although really he's not concerned about Gertrude knowing it, because in order to not scare her to death, he kind of has to let her in on the secret. But Hamlet won't know that Polonius is there. So meanwhile, now that Claudius is all by himself, Hamlet sneaks in and he's like, aha, he's completely alone. This is the perfect time to stab him. And right as he's thinking that, he sees that Claudius is down on his knees praying, and Hamlet's like, well, crap. If I stab him right now, there's a good chance that he will get into heaven because he's in the middle of praying and everybody knows that's holy. I don't want to stab him while he can get into heaven. I want to stab him while he goes someplace else, preferably someplace nice and hot far below. So he feels guilty about not acting on this beautiful opportunity, but he reluctantly lets go of his prize for the moment. The prize being, the murder of his stepdad. So Claudius was monologuing and he literally confesses to everything because he thinks it's just him and God and the castle walls. And it's like, yeah, I murdered my brother. Yeah, I know the Bible says that bad, but I can't give up my crown. This is way too important to me. And unlike Hamlet, he doesn't feel enough guilt to put anything off. He's like, you know what? I worked too hard for this. I'm keeping this crown. I'm keeping my place, my rightful place as being the king. And Hamlet's like, okay, well, I literally just heard him confess, but I don't want to go to heaven, so I have to wait until he's doing something bad, so that way his spirit will burn like my father's. Because, Hamlet's main motivation is revenge. Act 3, Scene 4. Setting, the Queen's room, or as it keeps saying in the play, the Queen's closet. So we have Queen Gertrude, Polonius, King Claudius, Hamlet, and the ghost all in these notes. Even though Claudius isn't actually there, they reference him. So Polonius walks in and he's like, psst, hey, Queen, don't freak out. I'm here to protect you. I'm just here to listen in on your conversation with your son that would normally be private, but it's kind of important that I find out what's going on. You dig? And Gertrude's like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Here, hide behind these curtains. So Hamlet comes in and Gertrude's like, son, I am super mad at you. And if these were modern times, I would ground you for the way you just treated your stepdad. And Hamlet's like, why are you so worried about that? And she's like, I'm mad because you upset your stepfather. And Hamlet's like, well, you upset my dad, the old king, the one that has my name. So he grabs her and it freaks her out. She starts screaming for help. And Polonius, instead of stepping out from the curtain and yelling for help, starts yelling, "Help! Help! Help!" and gets stabbed for his efforts. Now, I will be the first to admit that Polonius is probably not the nicest guy in the world, but he did not deserve that. I mean, even if he was a little overbearing, he was a caring father. Hamlet, when he sees the body, is disappointed because when he finally stabbed someone, he really hoped that it would be, Claudius. But no, it's only Polonius. And Gertrude is confused as to why her son is blaming her for old King Hamlet's death. The ghost shows up. Gertrude can't see it and thinks that her beloved son Hamlet has gone around the bend. She's like, oh crap, my son's crazy. Oh crap, what am I going to do? Oh man, this is worse than I thought. Oh boy, oh boy. And Hamlet's like, no, no, mom, you don't understand. I'm just faking being crazy. And she's like, uh-huh. And I believe that not at all. Sure, son, you're just faking it. Right. And he's like, no, mom, listen. And then the ghost reminds him of his purpose and says, help your mother because you're not here to punish her. God will take care of that. And Hamlet says, stay away from Claudius. And he goes into a big thing about basically how even though she's a wife and therefore has certain duties, especially in this time period, it would have been seen that way. He's like, listen, screw all that tradition, be an ice queen, just tell him I've got a headache, go away, sleep in different rooms, I don't care, just do not let him touch you. And he's like, back to happy crazy mode. Well, I better take care of this now. Bye, mom. And he starts dragging Polonius away. And that brings us to Act 4, which is the longest act in the play. So, Act 4, Scene 1. Setting, a room in the castle. I mean, it's a castle. There are probably a ton of rooms. Featuring Queen Gertrude, King Claudius, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern. So, and then, of course, Polonius in the corpse form. So Queen Gertrude immediately runs to Claudius and she's like, honey, my son has gone completely crazy. What do we do? And Claudius is like, what do you mean? And she's all, Hamlet just killed Polonius in front of me. I mean, to be fair, it was a mistake. He thought it was you, but he just killed somebody. And Claudius is like, okay, let's think about this very carefully. Now, from the public relations standpoint, which is what the PR stands for, the public, meaning, the majority of people in the country and the ones who have the power to overthrow a royal if they get really upset because there are more of them than there are royals and guards, loves Hamlet. How do we get rid of him without causing a riot? This is hard. So, let's do this. We're going to ship Hamlet off to England tonight. I'm going to make sure there's a ship and it is leaving and it is gone tonight. And he's like, okay, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, remember how I told you that you need to take Hamlet to England? Change plans. You're taking him right now. Here is a very important message. and gives them a very important sealed message to take with them that basically whoever they give it to, it says, hey, I'm calling in a favor. I need you to kill Hamlet. Now, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern obviously don't 100% know that's what's going on. That being said, that doesn't necessarily remove their guilt in Hamlet's eyes. Act 4, Scene 2. Setting, a different room in the castle, featuring King Claudius, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, and Polonius's body. So they know now that Hamlet has hidden Polonius's body somewhere. And he is refusing to share the location with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He's making a game out of it, basically, and playing up the crazy act big time. So he accuses his friends of being sponges for the king. This is like, listen, you're not my friends anymore. You haven't been my friends since you got here because you just soak up everything, suck, 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 suck. Take information to my evil stepdad. And then some way you're going to get rewarded from this because only a king can convince people to, betray their friends like this. So what did he promise you? And they're like, we're not sponges. Silly Hamlet. Hamlet's gone off the deep end. And they're like, okay, well, as former friends, we need you to come with us to see King Claudius. He's like, okay, fine. Mostly because it goes with his master plan. Okay, which brings us to Act 4, Scene 3. Yet another room in the castle featuring King Claudius, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern. So Hamlet still just flat out refuses to give the location of Polonius's body. He's like, nah, I don't feel like telling you. And he's teasing Claudius with comments about the afterlife, which basically he is baiting for max aggro. And this is where the part about the worms that we did earlier today comes in, where he says, if you think about it this way, birds eat worms, we eat birds, then we die, and then it doesn't matter if you're a king or if you're a peasant, the worms eat your body. We're all worm feasts walking around just waiting to get eaten by worms, and that kind of grosses everybody out. So Hamlet gives them a hint that there is a body somewhere near a stairwell. Gee, that's really helpful because, this is a castle, so there's probably a ton of stairs. And he goes, oh yeah, and by the way, if you don't figure it out soon, don't worry too much because he'll start to stink. Make it real easy to find the body then. So Claudius is like, okay, Hamlet, I had enough of your bullcrap. You're going on the ship to England right now. You're with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. You two, your job is to guard him. And they're like, okay, off we go to the ship. So everybody leaves, and it's just Claudius, and he's alone. He has a monologue moment. And this is where we learn the secret of the sealed letter, which basically ensures Hamlet's death. Dun, dun, dun. So, Act 4, Scene 4. Setting, a plain in Denmark. Now, not like the kind that you ride on, but, a flat area, mostly grasslands. You get the picture. We meet Prince Fortinbras very briefly, otherwise known as Fort in these notes. So we cut over to Fortinbras, and he is marching on Poland, which is suspiciously close to Denmark. And Hamlet has surprisingly profound thoughts here. Why are both sides risking casualties for what is literally a useless piece of land that neither one really has any use for? Because one of the soldiers comments is like, listen, you could pay me to farm that land and I still wouldn't do it. And Hamlet's like, then why is everybody getting into a big old tizzy over it? And he reflects on revenge. He's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to focus on King Claudius and violence, preferably violence against Claudius, because that's what I'm supposed to be working on. So that brings us to Act 4, Scene 5. We're back in the castle again. Surprise, surprise. So we have Queen Gertrude, QG, King Claudius, KC, Rosencrantz, Rose, Guildenstern, Guild, Ophelia, and Laertes. This is the part that we did earlier today. So Gertrude and Ophelia meet yet again, but Gertrude's kind of, we'll say not happy about this situation because she thinks still, because of Polonius before he died, that Ophelia is the reason for Hamlet's craziness. Thanks a lot, Polonius, for putting that idea in her head. Ophelia, on the other hand, unlike Hamlet, is not pretending to be crazy. She has flat out lost it. She is so upset and depressed that she has lost complete touch with reality. She's literally lost everything. First, she loses Hamlet. Now her dad is dead, and she doesn't even really seem to remember that she still has a brother, probably because, as far as she knows, he's in France and therefore is too far away to be of any use right now. So Ophelia is singing old songs, sometimes about death, but mainly they're focused on the loss of her dad, Polonius, and or love. So she wanders out of sight for a bit. And while she's out of sight, Claudius and Gertrude are trying to figure out what they're going to do with Ophelia now, because she has become quite the opposite of an asset. This conversation is interrupted by a bunch of people outside screaming for Laertes to replace Claudius as the king. Now, see, this is dangerous for a lot of reasons, especially if your name is Claudius. So Laertes breaks into the castle and he's like, this is your fault. And he's like, Claudius equals my dad died because he was trying to help him out. And Claudius is like, no, no, no. Remember, your dad and I were friends. Remember, friend, good person, someone you don't want to murder right now. And Gertrude's trying to protect him from Laertes, and Claudius is like, no, no, it's okay. You don't have to do that because here in a second, Laertes will calm down and remember we're friends. And then Ophelia returns, and this depresses Laertes even more. She's got a bouquet. Now, this part isn't clear in the play in modern day, but it is clear. Shoot. Yeah, isn't clear in modern day because we no longer typically associate flowers with specific meanings like they did back in Shakespearean times and Victorian days. But Ophelia's going through her bouquet and commenting on different flowers, and each one has a special meaning, which is why she's directing them to very certain people with her comments. So rosemary is for remembrance, and she directs that at Laertes. So I assume that she means that we should remember our father. Pansies equal thoughts. She also directs that one to Laertes. Fennel and columbines refer to adultery, and she gives that one to Gertrude. Now, I'm sure at this point that Hamlet would probably agree with that particular interpretation, but it's really surprising that Ophelia would feel that strongly about Gertrude and Claudius's relationship. And she says, all the violets died when my dad died, and the violets represent faithfulness. Rue means repent. She directs that one at Claudius. And the daisies mean unhappy love, and she directs that to both Claudius and Gertrude. So even though she's completely off her rocker crazy, Ophelia is pretty observant. So when she leaves, Laertes just gets angrier. And Claudius, being the master manipulator that he is like, look, I'm not the enemy. You and I need to work together to fight the true enemy. Remember, your dad and I were friends. And Claudius is like, what if I could tell you that there's a chance that I can help you get revenge against Polonius's killer? And Laertes is like, who? And Claudius is like, you know, Hamlet. That's who killed your father, not me. Dun dun dun. Act 4, Scene 6. Setting, yay, another room entirely in the castle. Featuring Horatio or Ho, Rosencrantz, Rose, Guildenstern, Guild. So Horatio gets a very interesting letter from Hamlet, who is supposed to be on a ship to England right now. The ship gets attacked by pirates. Hamlet lives, and they were very polite to him, not so much everyone else, because he was the only captive that they took. This just proves that Claudius is correct in how the public views their beloved Prince Hamlet. Even the pirates like him. So they dropped Hamlet back off in Denmark. It's like, bye, Prince, nice to meet you. And in Hamlet's letter, he's like, hey, Horatio, I need you to take these sailors that brought this letter to you to meet Claudius and Gertrude. Also, when I see you, I've got some information about Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that we need to talk about. Dun dun dun. So that brings us to Act 4, Scene 7. Yet another room in the castle, because why not? It's a giant castle. Queen Gertrude, QG, King Claudius, KC, Rosencrantz, Rose and Guildenstern Guild. So Claudius is busy plotting the downfall of Hamlet with Laertes. And he's like, look, we had a secret burial for Polonius. And it's like, look, the real murderer is Hamlet. I had nothing to do with this. Hamlet physically stabbed your father. This is all his fault. But, and Laertes is like, well, why don't you punish him for it? Why is he not getting hanged? And Claudius is like, well, you see, the public, generally speaking, loves Prince Hamlet. So that means that as the king, I can't officially punish him without bad things happening to myself. However, we have another complication. Queen Gertrude, as the mother, loves Hamlet. And because I'm married to her, I am the stepdad of Hamlet, and I am, more importantly, Gertrude's husband, which means that I can't directly punish Hamlet, or I will be directly punished by my wife. And Hamlet, in an interesting move, sends a letter of warning to Claudius He's like, look, I'm going to be back in town tomorrow. And Laertes is like, yeah, all right, the target's coming to me. This is perfect. And Claudius is like, how can I manipulate this to my benefit? I know. We're going to have a little contest. Contest for Hamlet and you. How about a nice old-fashioned sword duel? Everybody loves those. They're so entertaining. So Laertes will have the deck stacked in his favor. Not only will his sword be sharp, but it's also going to be coated in poison on the blade just to be safe. Hamlet's, on the other hand, will be a dull practice sword, and it will be completely normal, no poison. Now, as a backup plan, just in case that doesn't work out, Claudius also poisons Hamlet's victory wine, because there's supposed to be a victory drink if you win. You know, all those pesky traditions. And then Gertrude comes in and she has horrible news. Sweet Ophelia has drowned. Cue the sad music. Laertes naturally is even more upset now. Not only has he lost his dad, he's also lost his sister at the same time. So, revenge against Hamlet is cemented. Doom. Bum, bum, bum. And that is it for Acts 3 and 4. We'll cover Acts 5, which is the rest of the play notes, in Friday's summary video. I will see you guys Thursday. Make sure that you do your assignments. Bye for now.